Welcome to the review for the Semester 1 final. I'm going to solve all the problems, and if you want to look up the definitions, you can go ahead and do those. But let's start with number 1. It says, please reorder the numbers from least to greatest. And so I've got 0.25, I've got a negative 1/8, and negative 1/8 is actually negative 0.125. Negative 1/10, that's a negative 0.1. And negative 1/5 would be a negative 0.2. So to put them in order from least to greatest, I would take the smallest number, or the largest negative, which would be negative 1/5. Next, I would have a negative 0.125, which is a negative 1/8. Next, I would have a negative 0.1, so that would be our negative 1/10. And then finally our 0.25, our only positive value. So that would be the answer for number 2. The next one, I've got negative 2.5, I've got negative 3, I've got 2/5 as a mixed number. That would be 2 goes into 5 2 times, and 1's left over, so that would be 2.5, and then a negative 9/4, which would be 4 goes into 9 2 times. What's left over? 1/4, and this is negative. So we're looking for our largest negative. And so our largest negative is actually going to be negative 3. Then our next one would be negative 2.5. And then our next one would be our negative 9/4. And then after that we would have our 5/2. So negative 3, negative 2.5, negative 9/4, and then finally 5/2. Number 3 says simplify the fraction into lowest terms. Well, what goes into 4 and 20? And 4 goes into both of these, so I'm going to divide by 4/4. That would give me 1/5, or 1/5. Number 4. 3 goes into both of these, so I'm going to divide by 3/3. Negative 3 divided by 3 is a negative 1. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So our lowest term would be 1/8. Number 5, 60 and 125. What goes into both of these? Well, 5 does, so let's start there. $60 divided by 5 is 12, and 125 divided by 5 is 25. And that would be simplified. Write as a mixed number an improper fraction in lowest terms. Alright, so I got 60 over 15. How many times does 15 go into 60? Well, it would go in twice into 30. 60 divided by 15 is 4. To write this as an improper fraction, you would do 5 times 5, which is 25, plus 2 would be 27/5. Number 8. How many times does 13 go into 84? So 13 goes into 84 6 times. 13 times 6, we get 18. We get 78. So I have 84 minus 78. It's going to give me 6 left over. So my answer here is a negative 6 6/13. Number 9, they're going to want you to turn this into an improper fraction. So we would do 17 doubled. So I have 17 times 2, which is 34. Then I'm going to add 12 to that, which is 46. So I get 46/17. All right, number 10, I would have a negative 6 plus 10, and that's the same as 10 take away 6. That would give you a positive 4. Number 11, I've got a negative 25 plus a negative 36, so that's going to be a negative. And we've got 25 plus, that would be 11. 6, I got a negative 61. Number 12, 7 plus a negative 15. Well, that's going to give me a negative 7. And then I have a negative 7 plus 7. And that's going to give me 0. On number 14, we have a negative 9 minus a negative 12. Well, that minus a negative, remember that turns into a plus. So a negative 9 and a positive 12 would give me 3 in the positive. Number 15, I've got a negative 12.8 minus 5.6. And so negative 12, take away 5 more. That's like adding them. So that's going to give me 14, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to give me a negative 18.4. Starting with number 16, I've got a negative 2/3 times a negative 36. So what I like to do is just bump that negative up to the top. And then this is our multiplication. So, is there anything that I can cross cancel? Well, I can cross cancel the 3 and the 36. And so 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 36 12 times. Now when I multiply straight across, I get a negative 2 times a negative 12, which would be positive 24 over 1, or just 24. 17, I would put 64 over 1. And then I'd bump that negative just up to the 5, just to make it less confusing. Any cross-canceling? And 8 and 64, 8 goes into 8 once, and 8 times 8 is 64, so it's going to go in time 8 times. 8 times a negative 5 would be negative 40 over 1, or just negative 40. Number 18. 1 times 5 is 5, and 5 times a negative 4 would be negative 20. Number 19, I've got a negative 35. Divided by 7. Well, 35 divided by 7 is 5, and a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So for 19, I would get negative 5. Number 20. On 20, I've got negative 5/12 divided by 4/3. So what I would do here is I would once again bump this up to the top. Now remember, when we divide fractions, we keep and we change to multiplication, and then we take the reciprocal. Now this allows me to cross cancel. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 4 twice, or 3 goes into 12 4 times, excuse me. Then I multiply straight across, and I would get negative 5 over 16. Problem 21 says 2/5 plus 1/3. In order to add these, we have to have a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be 15. So I would take 2/5. In order for it to be 15, I'm going to have to multiply it by 3/3. That would give me 6/15. Taking my other fraction, 1/3, I'm going to have to multiply that by 5/5. That gives me 5/15. 6/15 plus 5/15 gives me 11/15. All right, now we're on to number 22. Your mom gives you an entire piece of pumpkin to share with your brother at Thanksgiving. And your pie is going to be cut up into 10 slices. So let's write that in there. 10 slices. If you eat 4 slices, what fraction of the pie did you eat in lowest terms? So if you ate 4 out of 10, to simplify that, 2 goes into both of these. That would give you 2/5. If your brother ate 5 slices, how much is left in lowest terms? So I'm assuming that you just ate 4/10 and your brother eats 5/10. I would assume that that's 1/10 is what's left over. The only other way that this question could be is if it's asking you out of the 10, which would be a half. Given each number, write it as a fraction, as a decimal, and a percent. 15% is the same as 15 out of 100, which we could simplify by dividing by 5. That would give you 3/20. The decimal is 0.15. And as a percent, it's already in a percent. Number 9, we've got 9/10, which is already in a fraction. And then we'd have to write it as a decimal. Well, if I multiplied the numerator and the denominator by 10, that would be 90 over 100. So the decimal would be 90 hundredths, or 0.90 or 0.9. And as a percent, it would be 90%. 1.25, it's already written as a decimal. As a fraction, we could write it as 1 and 25 over 100. And as a percent, this is 125%. On number 27, it says, what is 30% of 145? So I'm going to say, what is 30% as a decimal is 0.30. Of means times 145. So all I would have to do is take my calculator and do 0.30 times 145. Which gives me 43.5. What percent, I'm going to put P, of 65 is 18. So in order to get in order to get P by itself, I'm going to divide by 65. So I would do 18 divided by 65. And this gives me approximately P equals 0.28, and we need that as a percentage, so we're going to move that over twice. That's going to give me approximately 28%. Number 29, you're taking your best friends out for lunch in between finals, but you only have $15. If you plan to leave an 18% tip, will you be able to afford lunch if the bill comes to $13.75? Please show the work that you put into the problem below. So I've got to come up with a formula. And my formula is that I have 13.75 plus we're going to add to it the tip, and our tip is going to be 0.18, and it all has to equal, under 15. So we have to take this 0.18 and multiply it by 13.75. Which gives me 2.48, and I have 13.75. 13.75 plus 2.48. I'm going to add these together. 13, 12, 6, 1. Are you going to be able to afford it? And the answer is no. You don't have enough. Let's go to the next page. All right, Unit 1. So in order to solve these first couple, we have to use order of operations. So any parentheses, no. Any exponents, yes. So we have 2 to the 5th power, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. I get 32 times 2 minus 4 divided by 2. So no parentheses, no exponents. Multiplication or division. We have 4 divided by 2, which is 2. I also have times 2. I guess I could have done that one first. So 32 times 2 is going to be 64 minus 4 divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so I get 64 minus 2. That gives me 62 as the answer. Number 2, we have parentheses that we have to take care of. So 9 minus 6 is 3, so I get 24 divided by 6 plus 3. 24 divided by 6 is 4. I get 4 plus 3 is 7. Number 3, the innermost parentheses is what I have to do first. 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So I have 16 minus 5. 16 minus 5 is 11. 11 times 5 is 55. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, we're going to evaluate when k is equal to 7. 7 take away 9 is negative 2. Number 5, when t is equal to 2. 2 squared is 4. And 4 times 15 is 60. Number 6, when m is equal to 9.6, I get 9.6 divided by 4. Let me grab my calculator. And that gives me 2.4. All right, on number 7, we're going to do the distributive property. We would have 5 times 6, which is 30, and 5 times a negative y, which would be a negative 5y. This could also be written as negative 5y plus 30. Number 8, we've got 2 distributions. 5 times y is 5y. 5 times negative 1 would be minus 5. A negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. And a negative 4 times negative y would be plus 4y. Now we can combine like terms. I've got a 5y and a positive 4y. Together that's 9y. And negative 5 minus 12 more would be negative 17. On number 9, I've got negative 4, which I'm going to kind of backwards distribute. So I would get negative 4g, and a negative 4 times a negative 1 would be a positive 4, plus 3g. So my like terms, I've got a negative 4g and a positive 3g. I put those together, I'd get negative g, or negative 1g, plus 4. Distributing once again, I've got a negative 5, 6. This is going to come right here, so I'm going to do a negative 5, 6 times 6w over 1, and a negative 5, 6 times a negative 30, which would be a negative 5, 6 times a negative 30 over 1. This is going to allow me to cross cancel there. Also, 6 goes into 6 once. 6 goes into negative 30 negative 5 times. So now when I multiply across, I would get negative w, negative 5w, and then I've got a negative 5 times positive 5, which would be plus 25. Number 11. We're going to do this like the birthday cake method. We're going to do this part first. A negative 10 divided by 5 would be 2h. And then I have a negative 25 divided by 5, which would be a negative 5. Number 12, we're talking about the terms. And so to list all the terms, you would have 7y to the third. You would have 8y. You would have a negative 4. And you would have y to the third. The like terms, things that you could combine, you'd have 7y to the third along with y to the third. Those are the only like terms. The coefficient is what comes before the variable. So we have a coefficient of 7. We also have a coefficient of 8. And we also have a coefficient of 1, because there's an imaginary little 1 there that goes in front of that variable. The variables that we have here are just y. Let's go to the next page. I missed 14 and 17. The constant, the part that cannot change, is the term negative 4. That is the only part that is constant. It cannot change. In simplest form, what we're allowed to do is combine our like terms. So that would give you 8y to the third plus 8y. That cannot change. Minus 4. And that is in simplest form. Number 18 says, translate the verbal phrase into an expression. The quotient of a number x and 7. So you could write this a couple of different ways. You could do x divided by 7. You could also have x over 7. You could also have, that's kind of a stretch, but you could also have that. Number 19, the difference of the number y and 3. Y minus 3. Number 20, 6 more than 3 times the number n. I always want to think 6 more than what? Well, 6 more than 3 times the number n would be 3n plus 6. The vocabulary you guys can look up on your own. Number 1, check whether the given number is a solution to the equation. We're going to plug in 3 for x. So that would be 7 plus 3 times 3, which is 9, equals 16. 7 plus 9 is 16, so it is a solution. Number 2, let's plug in 5 for g. You would have 5 minus 3 equals 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. We get 2 equals 2. So this is also a solution. Okay, number 3, it says solve the equation if possible if an answer is fractional. Write the answer as a decimal rounded to the hundredths place. So in order to get x by itself, I'm going to do the opposite or the inverse of minus 8. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. That gives me x is equal to 29. On number 4, to get x by itself, I'm going to minus 3, the inverse of add 3, and a negative 1 take away 3 more is negative 4. So I get negative 4 is equal to x, or x is equal to negative 4. Number 5, I would divide both sides by 6. That would give me x is equal to a negative 7. Number 6, it's saying x divided by 3. The inverse of dividing by 3 is timesing by 3. If I do that to both sides, we would just get x is equal to 24. Number 7 is a two-step equation. I'm going to minus 5 first. That gives me negative 2x is equal to 6. And then I'm going to divide by a negative 2 to get x by itself. That's going to give me x is equal to negative 3. Number 8. I'm going to do the subtraction first because I'm doing the order of operations from bottom up. And so instead of minus 3, I'm going to add 3. That gives me 2/3 x equals 17 plus 3 is 20. And now to get x by itself, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 3/2 on both sides. That all cancels, leaving me with x. I can cross cancel. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 20 10 times, and then when I multiply across, I should get 30. Number 9, I have to do the distributive property. So 3 times x is 3x, 3 times a negative 2 is negative 6, and that all equals negative 15. Now I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That gives me 3x equals a negative 9. Then divide both sides by 3. I would get x equals negative 3. Number 10. I'm going to add 2x to both sides. That gives me 9x plus 19 is equal to 55. Then I'm going to minus 19 from both sides. That will leave me with 9x is equal to 36. And then divide both sides by 9. That gives me x is equal to 4. Number 11. 5.4 times x. So I'm going to divide by 5.4 on both sides. I get x is approximately 5.19. On 12, the distributive property with the 3 would give me 15x. 3 times a negative 7 would be negative 21 equals 15x minus 1. So, I'm going to minus 15x from both sides. And those both cancel. You get negative 21 is equal to negative 1. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And when it doesn't make a lot of sense like that, we call that a no solution. Number 13. On number 13, we would distribute the 2. So 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times a negative 1 would be negative 2 equals 6x minus 2. Let's say you add 2 to both sides. You get 6x is equal to 6x. Well, when you can tell it's exactly the same on both sides, we call this infinite solutions. Number 14. To start this one, I would add 3.5 to both sides. So I get 26x is equal to 99 plus 3.5. Well, 3.5 minus 1 is 2.5, so this is 102.5. Then I would divide by 26, and what do I get? 3.94. Number 16. There are 22 students in a Spanish class. This is an increase of 8 students over last year. So if I had to create an equation, my equation would look something like this. X representing the number of kids in the class plus 8 is equal to 22. So that would be my equation. Now to solve it, I'd minus 8 from both sides. And we would have 22 minus 8, which would be 14. So that would be my solution. Number 17, at a water park, you can surf for $28 per hour, plus a $16 fee for the use of a surfboard. Your bill came to $165. How many hours did you surf? So I would have $28 per hour plus $16 for the fee, and that came out to be $156. Now to solve it, I would minus 16 from both sides. So I would get 140. So I get 28x equals 140. Then I need to divide by 28. That gives me x is equal to 5. So how many hours did you surf? 5 hours. Solve each iceberg problem, remembering there is more than one solution than meets the eye. So what number, the absolute value of what number could be 3? Well, 3, but then there's also negative 3. Number 19, I would set up two equations for this. I would have x minus 5 is equal to 7, and I also have x minus 5 is equal to negative 7. So now I would go and solve. So I would have to add 5 to both sides to get x by itself. That would give me x is equal to 12. On this side, you would add 5 to both sides. You would get x is equal to negative 2. So my answer for 19 is 12 and negative 2. Number 20, 4x plus 8 is equal to 12. I would also have, let me give myself some room here. I would also have 4x plus 8 is equal to negative 12. Then I would go about solving it. Minus 8 from both sides. I get 4 times something equals 12 minus 8 is 4. Divide both sides by 4. I get x equals 1. The second part of number 20, I would minus 8 from both sides. That gives me 4x is equal to negative 20. Divide both sides by 4. That gives me x is equal to negative 5. So my answers are 1 and negative 5. Number 1 says, where are the following points located? Negative 4, negative 2. So that means I'm going to go over, and then I'm going to go down. So that would put me in quadrant 3. Number 2, I would go over 5 and up or down 0. So that means I'm right on the x-axis. Number 3, I would go over to the right 3, down 1. That's quadrant 4. Number 4, I would go to the left 2, then up 2. That would put me in quadrant 2. Number 5, I would go over 0, up 4, that puts me on the y-axis. 0, 0 is the origin. 2.5, 6, so that would be over to the right, 2.5, and up 6, that's going to be quadrant 1. Number 8 is a negative negative, which means to the left 1, down 1.5, that's quadrant 3. Let's go to the next page.